Greetings, one and all, and welcome back to the 1904 Club from the Hull Daily Mail. And today, I'm delighted to say we've got Burnsy out of retirement. How the devil are you, old son?
I'm all right. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So yeah, it's nice to be back on it. Looking forward to a bit of City chat.
The one question all summer is not, well, aside of what's the transfer situation, who he's signing, who's coming, who's going, what's the crack, has been, how's Burnsy? So, how is Burnsy?
Yeah, I'm sort of getting there. I was. You may not be able to tell now because I've put some weight back on, but I lost about 3 stone in under 2 months. So, and they didn't know what it was. So I spent lots of time in day visits to Hull Royal and all that sort of thing with a mystery illness, whatever. So lost my voice for a bit, so it's slowly coming back and what have you. But I'm getting there. I had no energy. It was a bit like City
There we
on
go.
Saturday. No energy whatsoever. But I think that's what you get when you've been man marked by Armitage Shanks all week, isn't it? You get that sort of performance. That's what you get.
Prutts, it's good to see you as well. How are you, old boy?
I'm good. Lovely to be back on. Lovely to see all of you. Yeah, it's. I thought I'd time it to when we had something to moan about, which I've done to perfection nearly, haven't I? Saw the result coming and thought, oh, come on, lads. But hey ho, early days.
And Kathryn, with your Lioness's shirt on, I like that. Nice touch.
Don't mention that, Baz. We're not talking about it. It's gone. It's
gone.
It's gone. It's in the past.
Boxed up.
Are you well?
No, most of my Hull shirts are in the wash, I think, actually. So I've just been moving around for the last few weeks. I was at a wedding on the Isle of Tiree in Scotland over the last few days. So I watched City go 1-0 down before I got on the plane from Tiree to Glasgow, which is a very, very short plane. And I landed and we conceded 2 more goals. So that was good. But apart from that, I'm fine.
It was almost like a throwback to last season, conceding so like seconds into the second half, and then very quickly afterwards, and the game was done. From a selfish point of view, writing the match report was easy on Saturday because the game was finished after 15 minutes. Compare that to Coventry when there was an element of jeopardy in the final moments. Wrexham, it was carnage from 3-1 up, winning the game and coasting through for the first time in forever to going out on penalties, and then obviously, 2-2 on Sunday to winning 3-2. So, but yeah, Burnsy, we were both at the MKM Stadium. We obviously reported in the build-up to the game that there'd been a sickness bug that had ravaged a lot of the players and staff as well. Jakirovic said he didn't know who would be available and who wasn't. In the end, Charlie Hughes fell down to the illness. Obviously, Matt Crooks was already out. Quite Akin Famiwa was poorly as well, although he took a kick to his ankle, I think, in training. But I know you joked about it, but it was true. They right from the start, they just looked really lethargic, and the performance was well below par and a long way from what we've seen throughout the summer, really, since Jakirovic first took charge.
Which is why I think I put it down as a one-off. I think when I'd read your report and preview and it mentioned illness in the camp, I thought, yeah, Blackburn will win this, was my gut feeling about it, because they just had no energy, did they? And it was that sort of performance. And I wouldn't read anything more into the performance particularly, other than the sickness bug, which is just really flat right from the off, no energy. They had that little spell where the keeper made 2 or 3 saves, but apart from that, a lack of energy performance. They didn't play particularly well. Ryan Giles should have made the tackle on what was it, the third goal?
Third goal,
Was third goal. Prutts, yeah. He was. He looked favourite for that ball and should have gone through the player and put the ball in the stand, put both in the stand. But it wasn't a good performance. But to me, the big factor is the illness bug, and obviously Crooks was missed because I think he started the season really well. Hughes was missed, and I'm sure we'll talk about Hughes because his absence in the way Kamara was absent he's going to Spain, isn't he? Immediately Hughes is not involved. People are thinking, well, where's he off? And I'm sure you'll explain, Baz, whether he's off or not.
There was also the second goal, which was clearly offside. I mean, that's Prutts. I was talking to
clearly offside. It's
Was
very
it?
tight. It's not clearly offside. It's
Well,
if you slow it down, then potentially you get to the point where Hash is offside. I do get that, but
yeah,
in that quite quick turnaround. This is me not letting officials off the hook, because when you are working out what an assistant referee needs to make the right decision, then it's obviously to be down the line of the ball with it coming back towards him. Two very different coloured shirts should make it quite straightforward. But yeah, when I first saw it, I thought Hedges had hit it in first time, which I was wondering how on earth he got it in from there. And then it does come off Hash. I mean, he runs off like he scores, which he does score. Really inventive free kick, I thought, from Cantwell. It took everyone by surprise, didn't it? That little reverse ball. And it's that 1-2 as we were watching the scores, we were watching the game, watching the scores come in, how quickly it changes. And then, great, absolutely with you, Burnsy. It's a bit old school, our opinion on it, but Giles has got a ball man, take it all out. Even if you give away a foul, it stops someone getting beyond you. And then I have no idea what the goalie's doing. I think he's thinking someone's running into him. So if you see him palm it out, he's almost kind of wincing a little bit, waiting for some contact. Get two hands across and catch it. And if you are going to palm it, get it out of the box. So it was quite you can pick the bones out of all. I mean, the first goal, really delightful finish. I mean, Hedges hasn't scored a goal in a year, but that if you're going to let a player of that quality run into the box relatively unmarked or unfollowed, then he's going to have the time and he had the composure just to dink it over. And then going out, I was watching the commentary back with the Burnsy, and it was calling it as it was when the third goal goes in was absolutely right, even though they had two great chances again, didn't the Blackburn? One of them was almost kind of goal of the season territory with Cantwell at the heart of it. So yeah, I mean, but going back to the point where he said about lack of energy and no real spark, if that is unfortunately the situation that you find yourself in as a team against the Blackburn side that, let's be honest, needed a win from somewhere. City handed it to them on a plate. Yes, they scored some good goals, but from what I could tell, it wasn't an arduous afternoon, was it, for Blackburn to get themselves up and out of there with 3 points?
Yeah.
Kathryn, in terms of the game, it's fine lines are funny. Everybody talks about fine lines in football, don't they? And I guess from City's point of view, as poor as they were and as much Blackburn were 100% deserving of that victory, City started slowly, but then they had that kind of 3-4 minute spell just before Blackburn scored the first goal where Yuri Ribeiro, there was a cross came in, I think it was from Giles, to the back, or maybe Ndala to the back post. Out of nowhere, Ribeiro headed towards his own goal. Yeah. Keeper turned it around for the corner. From Gauhart's corner, McBurney had a header, which was brilliantly saved by the goalkeeper, Toff. And then almost within seconds, Joel Ndala cuts in, bends it towards the top corner. The goalkeeper turns it around. If any one of those three had gone in that moment, suddenly City go 1-0 up. The crowd have woken up as well because they were really flat as well. And then perhaps the game is different, and perhaps that the kind of that lethargy in the performance, that illness, obviously, that quite a few of them have had. Maybe it's a different game. Maybe Blackburn go on and win 3-1. We'll never know. But that kind of, if they'd have scored in that moment and got their noses in front, perhaps it could have been a little bit different. Do you think, or am I clutching?
No, I mean, Prutts mentioned it, didn't it? Blackburn had a bad start to the season and needed something. And if they'd gone, gone a goal down, their heads might have dropped. And we could have gone on to win the game. I think those three chances that you mentioned, I mean, when I saw them back, the header from McBurney in real time, it looked like it was a brilliant save. And then when you see it back, it was actually kind of like a save you'd probably expect the goalkeeper to make. It's the same with Ndala. He was one of those goalkeepers where he sort of made the save look a bit dramatic. It was like one for the cameras, wasn't it? Especially the Ndala one where you saw it
ridiculous.
Back. It was quite. It was actually. I don't think he could have caught it, to be fair, but he really kind of jumped as if to look at the save I just made. And obviously the one that, their defender nearly kind of sent towards his own goal. I think while there were obviously chances, it wasn't sort of like, I'd looked, when we were 3-0 down and I was looking at the stats and it was sort of like clear-cut chances. We had 0 compared to like Blackburn, I think had 4 at the time and had scored from 3. So while, if that goal, one of those goes in, it could have been a different game. But I think, I don't think we created anything that was kind of like a outstanding chance where you sort of got your head in your hands. I think the keeper made 2 saves that you would expect him to make, and then there's kind of one from that could have been an own goal but didn't end up being one.
Well, he will be firmly holding on to his clean sheet bonus, though. Keeper, credit to him. I'd be waving it around saying clean sheet. Well done us. They look the better side. Just going back to the Ohashi goal, I thought originally it came off his thigh. He'd steered it with his thigh, and then I saw a couple of replays, and I think City players were appealing for handball. That it sort of come across his. Flicked his belly and maybe hit his arm and went in, but I'm not convinced. It was a good goal, and in fairness to them, they'd obviously put some work on the training ground on it, and Cantwell ran the game. I've always liked him as a player. I was very impressed with him. He strolled around, did what he wanted, and totally dictated it. But I go back to what I said earlier. Personally, from my point of view, I'm sort of putting it down as a one-off performance because I think they've started the season well, and I'm putting it down to the illness. But the coach will have learnt stuff about his team and his squad and everything like that. Can we go to the Hughes thing? Because it was in the way that Kamara was missing because everybody sort of knew he's going to Getafe. I take it that's gone through. There was a lot of speculation about Hughes, and people were panicking. What's the situation there, Bas?
Well, let's touch on Kamara. So Kamara was out in Madrid on Friday. Well, Kamara was out in Madrid on Friday to undergo medical and what have you with Getafe. I don't think it's gone through. It's not been confirmed yet, so we're just waiting on that. I know Getafe have had some of their own transfer situations in La Liga, not being able to register players. I think they've got 1 or 2 that are going out. Ironically, the more you find out, the more clubs are actually struggling across Europe. So it looks like they've got to move somebody out to get Kamara in. But it seems for all the world that Abu Kamara is going. I know it was we initially reported a few weeks ago that it was going to be about 3.5 million, and it was a permanent exit. Well, now it appears that that's going to be initially a loan for Kamara, so he's going to go to La Liga for a year. So we're waiting on him on that being confirmed. Obviously, it is a bank holiday over here today, so we'll have to wait and see if anything develops on this side. That then, his exit then frees up his space, and we'll come on to that in a bit. But in terms of Charlie Hughes, I know there was a lot of flapping around on Saturday night. I'm not really sure where all that... I know there was a tweet or something from somebody that suggested that Palace were, preparing a bid or getting ready to bid. I always laugh when it says they're preparing for us, because you have this image of them sort of sitting around in a room, getting paper ready and not doing anything with it, but sort of putting it in a pile. But we'll park that for Tuesday. It's prepared. It's ready. We'll leave it for Tuesday.
Here's one I made earlier. It's and with the great respect to Charlie, before we started recording, when it was mentioned, that I was genuinely very surprised. Obviously, there's a lot of debate about Crystal Palace in that particular department moving forward with some very big name players, isn't there? So, you get these rumours that sometimes pop up, sometimes on the basis of a whisper or nonsense. Like I said, it's the first I'd heard of it, and there's a lot of football to come from a young player that obviously is very highly regarded at City. So, I would presume, but then, given what we were looking at over the course of the weekend and listening to you off the back of last week with the transfer situation, then I don't know if this suddenly gains momentum and there's a bid that comes in which is 7 figures plus, then it changes the conversation completely, doesn't it? Really.
Ready for the Premier League? Just as a general question.
I've not seen enough of him to suggest that would be the case. But then the flip side of that is, Burnsy, I have always found players adapt to it in different ways. I mean, Adam Wharton's one, isn't he? Where I saw him at Blackburn for a long time. I say a long time. He's only young, wasn't he? And played a decent amount of games. But one of those where he was a very, very good player. You were always quite wary of how young he was. And then he goes into the Premier League. And absolutely duck to water type stuff. So some players are built for that in a certain way, which sounds a bit arse about face, but I wouldn't be able to tell you right now whether he would be a hit or he would be a middling Premier League player. But I mean, Christ, being a middling Premier League player is no disgrace, is it?
I think on Charlie, in terms of like what happens over the next 5-6 days, as we record now, there have been no fresh bids for Charlie Hughes. Obviously, Coventry, there was interest from Sheffield United, but that I think never amounted to anything significant. We know there was a £4 million bid and a £7 million bid and various conversations with Coventry about Charlie, but that hasn't progressed as we speak. There's been no further, they've not come back. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they did. And also, we all know how mental the last few days of the window can be. And suddenly teams start to panic. They look at their options and they go, oh, I'm not sure about that. We maybe have got an injury. Actually, we don't want to miss that. We like that player, but we don't want to risk missing out on him. And we think we can get him at a reasonable price now. My worry so as it stands, he's not going to be sold. But we know that City have had cash flow problems over the course of the summer. If somebody comes in on Sunday night and offers £15 million for Charlie Hughes, I think they sell him. And
I know that's slightly hypothetical, but I mean that would be 100% true, wouldn't it? I think we can all agree on that. If someone comes in and offers £15 million for a player that's knocking on the door of about 50 appearances for City, maybe even less. I mean, it's that would be, and given Christ, it's 29, so not even 30. So that would be a given, wouldn't it? That type of, 10. Again, going back to City's cash flow problems, and it was always going to be the case if it came to a head like it has done, where you have got to assemble a team with frees and undisclosed and all that type of stuff, that a big payday, it'd be very, very tough for Rajan to say no, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, the big problem they've got a few problems, but obviously they think, and I've said this repeatedly on this podcast for months now, is they think that in a year's time that they could get around about 20 million for him. I'm not saying they're going to get 20, but that's the feeling that he would be. If he has, obviously last season he only played 28 times. He had 2 spells out injured. This season he's played once in the Championship, and he was out ill. It's unfortunate, but he was unavailable. So you're buying with Charlie. He's got huge potential, and I've got no doubt that he could go on and play in the Premier League. But it's still quite early. But the problem City have got is they brought in Firmino and Ajay. They brought 2 very, very good defenders, but 2 very good defenders that didn't play a lot last season and are already, not even 2 weeks into the season, are unavailable. However that looks, whether they're ill, got knocked, hamstrings, or whatever, they are unavailable. John Egan, very, very good centre half, but has had injury problems before. On Saturday they had to play an 18-year-old who'd never ever played a competitive game outside of Dublin before. So they've got a real problem. And the other thing, they can't go out and buy a Charlie Hughes Mark II for 5 million, 6 million, because they can't spend any money. So they are hamstrung. So, short of selling him for £15 million and banking the money and go, well, we'll have to take the hit and maybe Louis Cole can play centre half, or we'll just have to fudge it. They're in a really bad situation. So they can't afford to sell him. Charlie Hughes' market value isn't going to decrease over the next 12 months. So it's only going to rise if he plays football. And he's not played enough football for me. Kathryn?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was the key, wasn't it? And within that sort of strange tweet rumours that were going around, one of the obviously ideas was that if he went to a Premier League club, they might loan him back to us for a season, which I suppose they would then be getting him maybe at a fee that would be less than what he could be worth in a summer if he has a good season. That would be the only way I think you could sort of swallow it if a bid came in for 15 million, let's say, or whatever. You'd be losing, as you've just said. Ajay I think is a brilliant centre back, but you can't trust that he's going to be fit for the whole season because he played a game and immediately picked up a hamstring injury, and it was a hamstring injury he's previously had at his other club. And you've just mentioned it. We had an 18-year-old at centre back who's clearly not ready to play week in, week out in the Championship, and going and trying to find a free transfer or a loan at this late stage that's going to come in and give you the quality of a Charlie Hughes or whatever, you're not going to find that. You might find someone to plug the gaps, but it'd be a struggle. So I think we'd be in a really, really bad situation. So when Prutts was saying, yeah, for £15 million, but can we not give anyone ideas, please? Can we not give stop giving clubs an idea of, oh, they'd sell him if they got a £15 million bid? Just pretend that they wouldn't sell him if they got a £15 million bid. But it's yeah, they'd have to. That would be the only way, I think, if they got a bid of that magnitude, which they went, we just can't turn it down. They'd have to try and get some agreement that he would come back to us on loan for the season, because I actually don't think he would go into, unless it's a team that's just come up from the Championship. I don't think he's going into, let's just pick Palace for an example. I don't think he's going into Palace and starting straight away. Like I just don't kind of see that. I think he needs another season in the Championship to prove himself at this level, given the fact he was injured for quite a lot of last season. He needs a full Championship season. If he has a really good season, then yeah, see somebody, assuming we're still in the Championship, for the next season, I could see a team, that maybe goes up, or a team maybe even that's already in the Premier League coming in for him. But I can't see him going and starting in many Premier League teams right now. Maybe the three that came up from last season, but I think it would be better for him to stay in the Championship for another year.
Prutts, on that subject, give us a little like a player insight, because the one player I think of right now in that situation is Aaron Cashin. Obviously, Aaron was massively highly rated at Derby. He played a lot of games. He played in the Championship. He played all season in League One as they got promoted under Paul Warne. There'd been consistent interest from Brighton and Hove Albion over, I think, 2, 3, 4 windows. Brighton finally signed him in, I think, January. He went and he was on the bench a couple of times under Fabian Hürzeler, but he's never played. He's now on loan at Birmingham and back in the Championship, and he can't get. He's on the. Yes, I know that Birmingham have had a settled team, have won promotion, and we're only 3 league games into the campaign, but he's on the bench. So yes, Aaron Cashin has gone to a Premier League club. Yes, he's training. When he was at Brighton, he was training day to day with far better players, and yes, salary wise, he's obviously jumped up from what he would have been on at Pride Park to what he's on the Amex. But in terms of his career, he's no further on, surely. Now he's on the bench at Birmingham as he was when he was playing every week at Derby.
Yeah, I mean, so what, 23, am I right in thinking Aaron is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's knocking on the door of 130 appearances so far in his career, which I think for that age isn't too bad. But it's funny because you asked me a question where, having been in a similar position as a young kid that had come through at Forest and then getting a chance to play at Southampton, it was obviously one that I ultimately ended up leaping at. And I look at it now in a slightly more cynical way of when I do speak to younger players, trying to get the point across of, you've got to love the game, you've got to be devoted to it, and you've got to really, it's absolutely vocational. But I would be hard pressed if it sounds a bit cynical, this as well, if my son was in a similar position where they went, well, here's the club you're going to, here's the money, and it would be meteoric compared to potentially what it'd be earning in other places. And I'd try my absolute best to try and rule in the type of way that is better for the boys' development, rather than just say you're going to get a really fat payday here, fill your boots, which again, it sounds awfully cynical, but because we're talking about a game that we all love, but for these players, it's their job, their livelihoods, their profession. So you've got to take that into account. Plus, I mean, not everyone can plan it out in the right way. Not everyone's a Jude Bellingham where you'll go, I'll start here, I'll go to this country, I'll do that, I'll come to this country, do that. That's the kind of rarefied air of players such as that, whereas other ones have got to take a chance. And you look at Greavesy. Similar, you know what I mean? Went to a Premier League club that's now back in the Championship, but that's a collective thing. It's not one player not hitting the standards. That's a team not being able to compete in the Premier League, which again is no disgrace because it's a huge gap. So has he now taken us backwards / a sideward step? Time will tell, but you get the feeling that he'd paid his dues at City and he'd deserve a crack at that. Whereas Charlie's career is still very much in its infancy. Yes, I know he's 21, but you look at the number of games under his belt, you look at the experience that he's got and his ability to develop at that age, at this level. I mean, the other side of it is having seen and again, it's slightly different. And this is no disrespect to Charlie, and it's only because I know the people involved personally. So like a Brennan Johnson going to Spurs, Archie Gray going to Spurs, players like that, where you see a flicker of something brilliant, and then they get the chance, and then you get judged in a whole different set of parameters. Going back to Kathryn's point, again, all of this with the greatest respect to Charlie and what his career is going to unfold like. If you're a Palace fan and there's a potential of losing Mark Gurhey, and then you're going, I'm sorry, who's this kid that's going to come in? Because your perception would be, oh, he's going to come in and fill a gap. Whether he'd be ready or not, time would tell. And playing in a defence in a team in the Premier League who is having even lost big players, but they're on an upward trajectory, aren't they? A couple of trophies under the belts. That team's moving forward. That club's moving forward. So whether Charlie, and this is all very hypothetical, could be a part of that, time will tell. But I think it's really tough because you don't know where your next move's going to push you onto. But I think the decision made at that moment is pretty much always the right one, because yes, you can regret, yes, you can say what if, but you never know. Injuries as well. That's a key thing for players. Sometimes a sliding doors moment of being a player that's going that way and something happens and it holds you back and your career takes a different direction. So cynically, I'd be hard pressed not to advise a younger player in that position to look at the contracts and then work out what you want to do when you're 35 and older.
Burnsy, the optics of it, of City keeping Hughes, he's become such a huge part of Hull City over the last few months. You know, the fans love him. Yes, he's only played, I think, 93 career games. He's not proven, but he's obviously an unbelievable talent. And if they sell him, basically, if they were to sell him this summer, it's to tick a box in the sense of we need the money. You know, you wait till next summer and hopefully he's played 35, 40 games this season. City have had a good season, however that looks, you know, but assuming they don't get promoted, then he's going to go. They've kind of almost had a discussion with him that you go next summer, but you go to the Premier League. Jurkovic has been very forthright. Any move to the Championship is sideways. If he's going to move, but he needs to move next summer, you go to the Premier League.
But any move in not every move in the Championship would be sideways, wouldn't it? Not if you go into a side that looks as though it might get promoted. You'd get your Championship experience and then, you know, get to the Premier League and play in the Premier League next season. But it'll all be. It looks like it'll all be decided by the finances, doesn't it? Essentially, it's a financial question, and whether anybody puts tempting money on the table. And are they in a situation to turn down tempting money? We'll wait and see. I hope he stays. I don't think, having watched him, that he's ready for the Premier League at this point. I agree with Prutts and Kathryn. I think he needs at least another season in the Championship. And but the decision is to some extent, given the cash flow problems, appears to be out the club's hands. It's, you know, if somebody lands a bid, hopefully a bid doesn't happen. If a bid does happen, hopefully they're in a situation robust enough to say, actually, no, we're not going to do the deal. So we'll see.
The good thing as well, we spoke about Charlie, didn't we, when he came in, and there was absolutely an unknown quantity about what he was going to bring to the side. And as much as yes, there's a lot of work to be done off the field with regards to where they find themselves financially. I think broadly, and this goes back obviously to when Charlie came in, but moving through the last 18 months and the players that have come in, there's a lot to be very, very positive about. Yeah, I mean, we might be blowing something up completely hypothetically that is just nonsense on the internet. We don't know, but you've got to discuss it because of the quality of the player, the potential of the player, and the two clubs again potentially involved, Hull City and Palace. But there's even though there has been a bit of kind of putting this band of brothers together, which isn't kind of the sexiest way of doing it, of going, here's 10 million for him, here's 5 million for him. It's the sum of the parts. There is a hell of a lot to like, I think. Going back to Kathryn's point, coming away from the first 11, maybe there's questions about depth, and then you just fingers crossed that you don't have a sickness bug every single week that knocks out some of your biggest players, and also those big players stay fit. That's in the hands of the physical department and how the games go. But there is keeping all the players, yes, is massive, but broadly, I think the work that they've done, I've been quite impressed with.
We'll come on to that in a sec, Prutts, because I know you spoke a lot about that on Saturday on with Joby and the rest of the panel. Kathryn, I know it's hard when you've been beaten 3-0 to look for positives, but and I know Qatar McCarthy had a really difficult afternoon, thrust in out of nowhere at centre half in a championship game. But for him, that's a huge, huge thing. He's come from University College in Dublin. He was signed by the academy in the summer, but partly because of consequence of the embargo and things, he was one of many young players that went to Turkey and really impressed. He did impress. He got his chance. And the other one was Mohamed Baloumi, after 9.5 months out with an ACL injury, was back on the pitch on Saturday and showed some real nice touches. And there was one run down the right-hand side where he got to the byline. And, so that's almost like a proverbial new signing as well, isn't it? Having Baloumi back and hopefully Liam Miller at some point next month as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about lack of creativity, and Baloumi is the type of player that, could give you something different. And obviously you kind of know that it's going to take him a little bit of time to get back up to speed. And, I know a lot of players, they come back from an ACL injury, they have that initial burst of kind of almost adrenaline, almost kind of just, in the first few matches. And then they sometimes struggle as they go on a little bit, and they need to maybe have a little bit of a rest and stuff like that. So you obviously know you don't want to put too much expectation on him, but just having him back as an option, especially now it looks like that Kamara is obviously on his way. It's huge for, Jurkovic to have him to choose from, and hopefully he can kind of build back up slowly and get back up to speed. And because he was, obviously one of the bright sparks during the Tim Volter kind of period. He was the player that created stuff and made it look like he was going to create something. So it's obviously brilliant to have him back. And then obviously on McCarthy, I think, now he's kind of had that game out of the way. It is great experience for him. And while you don't want to be in a position where you're kind of having to rely on an 18-year-old, it's brilliant experience for him. And if hopefully maybe if we get to the position in January, we've got the depth where we could maybe let him go out on loan and get, more regular game time, so he can get that kind of experience that he needs. That would obviously be better. But I don't know if, the club are kind of looking at another centre-back cover. I know that because they've obviously brought 2 in, but whether they're looking at trying to get a loan or a free transfer in the defensive area, just because of the injury to, Ajay, and kind of that uncertainty of how long he's going to be available for, or how many injuries he might kind of pick up throughout the season.
I think ideally they'd like more cover, but the issue they've got is that the market they're shopping in. Go on, Burnsy.
Yeah, well, just on that, we are getting some tweets to the 1904 club. Chris Dyer at Yorkie Cornish says, for centre-back cover, should City look to sign either Liam Cooper or Craig Dawson, both dependable at this level? Baz, you said they were looking at centre-back cover?
Yeah, obviously Liam Cooper was very, very close to signing a year ago. Very close. I mean, as in he is so close was Liam Cooper that the medical was booked and the club were expecting him in to come and do his pictures and his club interview and all that sort of stuff before. I think from what I gathered, Tan Kesler pulled the plug on that in the end. But he obviously then went. Was it Bulgaria? He went to. Was it Sofia?
Yeah,
he went out to.
Yeah.
Look, the problem they've got is, and it's well documented, that they can't just go out and sign a Liam Cooper or a Craig Dawson or any other centre half. They can't do that because it's now where they're at with financial fair play and what have you. It's one out, one in, one out. So Kamara goes, Amir, give me a second, Hadzimitovic. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Apologies, but we'll go with Amir, the 28-year-old.
I like it.
Thanks.
Say it with conviction.
Yeah.
Step into it, Dad.
Yeah, I'm worried that when he signs, if he signs, I'll start his name in the first half and I'll still be trying it in the second half to get through it. You'll need
the old school,
for his name on the back of the shirt.
Yeah, or the old school chant where they'd spell his name out. Give us it. I was like, geez, is the H silent? We don't know. Give us it.
But yeah, so
is that happening, Baz?
it's looking like it. He wants. I mean, we said last week he wants to come. The owner is in dialogue with his counterpart at Besiktas. So I think there's a growing sense that it will get done. Yeah, I know they had one or two other targets, but I think they're really pushing that one. Obviously, the fact it's coming from a Turkish club probably helps in terms of negotiations, potentially. But so they're trying to get that. But coming back to the defensive point of view, I think they'd like, look, the issue they had, and they've had all summer, is because of their restrictions that they can't buy anybody. So it's free transfers. They can't pay loan fees. So they're relying, like with Manchester City and Leeds, the goodwill of the parent club in saying, look, we won't charge you a loan fee. And loan fees never used to be a thing, but there's certainly quite some. In terms, just quickly on that, when you were playing, how prevalent were loan fees and clubs paying £1 million or £500,000, £1 million to get a player out on loan? It feels quite new.
It does, yeah, it does. And you hear some of the astronomical fees that are involved, and some of the clubs that can drive that particular hard bargain. There's some seriously good business being done on their part. If you're getting that type of privilege of a player being developed somewhere else with a portion of his wages being paid and also fees, it has changed significantly. I went on loan three times, I think, and needless to say, there was no loan fee being arranged with that. Especially when they'd see me in the flesh, going, "Oh my word! Thank God we're not also paying for you as well."
Ask for a refund, then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Were they paid? Did your club pay the other club to take you?
Yes, they did. Sorry, I was trying to work out the finances of it then. So I went on loan to Scunthorpe from. I mean, we are plumbing the depths. But sorry, Scunny, but it has nothing to do with being where you are now. To Wednesday, from Scunny to Wednesday, and I mean, I don't know how it works out. I mean, you just very, very thickily, if that's the thing, you're just bothered about that particular amount of money dropping into your bank account every month, regardless of whether it comes from Scunny or Wednesday and Scunny. I don't know. So so the loan fee side of it. I mean, it's big business. You look at the especially big football clubs, obviously in the Premier League. There's whole departments that are now dedicated to loan players. There's whole staff that are dedicated to loan players. So it is big business. And you look at, I don't know, a team like Liverpool that seemingly yes, they do good business at the top end of what their squad is, but younger players, peripheral players, they always seem to get decent money, don't they? Whether it's loan fees or whether it's actual transfer fees. So it's a sterling job that's being done there by Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards. But it seems to be more prevalent. I mean, maybe it's a reflection of more money in the game, particularly when you look at the size of the clubs that we're talking about. But again, in Hull City's instance, I mean, they're relying very much on, but not the goodwill of the football club, because that sounds like they're going cap in hand. But we always used to talk about Liam's relationships with other clubs, which helped to get players in. Presumably, part of what the financial side of it is a certain amount of charm and rapport between clubs, because it wouldn't be the same across the board that you can kind of say, well, we'd like this player, but we can't pay for him. We can't give you any money for him. Can you help us out? Because football, it's not, as we know, it's a brutal industry. It's not altruistic, is it? It's literally, well, how much money can we get for this commodity? And if you've got clubs that are saying to City, then we'll take care of that, then it's a pretty good position to be in off the back of being embargoed, isn't
it? In an ideal world, Baz, ahead of the closure of the transfer window, how many loans would they like to do? Amir obviously won the top priority. Is there somebody else that want to get, and they're prepared to sacrifice somebody going out? Where are we at?
I think they'd like another defender, obviously, given the situation with Famewo and Ajayi. I think it's like if a midfielder was to leave, they'd have to replace him with a midfielder. I think they would like another winger, but I'm not sure that's realistic when you've got Miller and Bellumi coming back. Obviously, you've got Akintola.
Say, how many wingers do they need?
Yeah, exactly. You've got Akintola, and Darla looks at one heck of a prospect. You've got Gauhart there that can play, but I think the theory, somebody asked me this on Saturday, but I think like with Gauhart, once you've got Miller and Bellumi back and you've got Ndala as well, I think you'd like to move Gauhart into the number 10 role and not have him out on the wing. I think that's just a short-term fix. But yeah, I think realistically they'd like another defender just as cover.
Is that, sorry to put it back, is that a stipulation what you just said there about like for like players moving in and out, or is that just what you think they need? Because you said a defender for a defender. That's not a ruling, is it? Surely.
No, that's not a ruling. But
all right, I thought for a minute I'd missed their way. Like whoever went out, you had to, it was that position you had to fill in.
No. But what they need, what they can't. This is what they have to do because of where they are with squad limits and FFP. They at the minute they can't go and get. They couldn't go and sign 3 players. So they can only bring in the guy from Besiktas because Kamara is on his way. If that deal, if the Kamara deal collapses, they can't sign. That knackers that exactly. No, okay. I mean, they could sell McBurney for 5 million, and they could bring in a centre half. There's no restrictions in terms of who position it or anything like that. But it's just solely down to the mechanics of their squad. Kathryn, what do you think? I mean, it's kind of almost a moot point because we know they want to sign the Amir from Besiktas, so they can't just then go and sign 2 centre halves or a right back or a left back or anything like that. What do you think they really need? What's the massive gap you think they need to fill, however that looks, between now and 7 o'clock on Monday night?
I think it's the midfield because I think, and obviously, hopefully Amir, as we're now calling him, kind of fills that that role, because I do think as much as the defence looked stretched and sort of, you're looking at the lack of depth there. I mean, not having Matt Crooks on Saturday felt like a big loss. And, I'd kind of said the week before he'd started the game really well and then he maybe faded a little bit, but obviously he'd picked up that injury. I don't know how long he's expected to be out for. Regan Slater coming in, and I don't know if it was just because of the balance, just didn't quite seem to click as well.
No, it didn't work, did it?
It didn't seem to work, and I'm a bit kind of sad about the situation with Slater because I think he's been a brilliant player for a long time, and maybe he kind of wanted to leave at some point. I don't know if that's definitely the situation, but he doesn't maybe quite look like the same Regan Slater that we saw a couple of years ago. And I know he had a difficult season last year in and out of the team, and he's always kind of given 100% to this football club, and he's always been really popular with the fans. And I hope that, there is a way to get him kind of working in this team to be kind of, whether it's not necessarily starting every week, but if he has to come in and plug a gap, or, I always would have said, for example, Saturday away at Bristol City is a perfect game for him to just bomb up and down, get up and down the pitch, put that kind of hard work in that you need sometimes in away performances, which maybe you don't always kind of want in home games. And I hope that he still does have a role to play. But that midfield, and it wasn't just him. I didn't think Casey Palmer was anywhere near as good as he was against Oxford. I thought he had a really poor game and was really quite poor for the first goal, actually. You can look at the defending. He was sort of there kind of in a 50-50 sort of tackle and just sort of backed off, and that wasn't particularly great. Obviously, Lundstrom, we keep him fit. He's probably the first name on the team sheet in that midfield. Mm-hmm. So it's about kind of work, building that midfield around him, really. And I think the midfield, the other midfield options that we've got, I just don't think any of them have been consistent enough, and that's always been the problem with Palmer as well. We've seen him have brilliant performances, but we've also seen him have disappointing ones, and you just want him to have that kind of consistent midfield free. That maybe it changes for an away game where you're going to sit in and try and go and nick a point rather than when you're playing at home and you want to take the game to the opposition. But Matt Crooks, it did really feel like he was a big loss on Saturday. The only other thing I was going to mention, obviously, anything happens to Ollie McBurney, I think we've got a problem as well, because suddenly your goal presence, and I know we've not seen Ennis Destin yet, or don't know kind of what he's like and what he might be able to bring on, might not be able to bring, but I'm still obviously not convinced by Kyle Joseph at the minute. Again, as much as he's a hard worker, there's still the lack of goals there, the lack of kind of presence when he has to play in that central two. Whether he could have some sort of partnership with McBurney, I don't know. But, he's sort of praying that nothing happens to McBurney because there's nobody to kind of come in behind him. Again, appreciate I've not seen Destin, so I don't know kind of what he might be able to offer. But that's kind of my big fear. The midfield, I think, is the priority, but just because I think it's not realistic that you're going to get another centre forward in probably at this stage because of the restrictions that we've got.
Yeah, just quickly on the injuries. So Matt Crooks won't be back for the weekend, but they hope that he'll be back for Swansea after the international break. So that's obviously a big blow. Louis Coyle was training on Saturday, so it's expected he'll be back in full training this weekend in the squad. Ennis Destan we expect back in training, and he could be in the squad at Bristol City. And they also hope, obviously, that Charlie Akinfenmewo are also going to be fit. They hope that the deal for Amir gets done, so he could be in the squad, but that deal's not done yet. But Shemi Ajayi not back until after the international break, and also the same with Liam Miller. But obviously Liam might need time. Just quickly on that, I asked Jakirovic why Balumi had not played any under-21s football and he'd been thrust straight back into the first team. It was because he said that he was worried that on less pitches that aren't as good as first team pitches, that playing younger players, that Balumi, it was a big risk to play Balumi, and he would rather give him the minutes in championship games. So that's and I'm guessing the same would apply for Liam Miller as well. Burnsy, what have you got?
I was just on going back to McCarthy. I thought he did all right on his debut.
Second half,
18-year-old thrown in, very really limited experience in terms of, well, he's only 18, I suppose, but Arsenal are throwing in 15-year-olds these days. So, I thought he did all right. There's, and I saw him pre-season against Sunderland and was very impressed. And I know the club have high hopes for him. And as I said on Saturday, you look at the stories of clubs he was linked at. There was a couple of Premier Leagues clubs, I think Everton and Fulham were tracking him at one point as to whether they might make a move for him. So hopefully, let's hope he stays, develops. I take the point about does he need a loan spell? Don't know, but he's in a situation where he's in the team at the moment. Hopefully Hughes is back on Saturday and he might go back to the bench, but I thought he did all right. I think it was all right. Oliver Harsley says to the 1904 club, willing to treat the Blackburn performance as a one-off, given the mitigating factors of the sickness bug. I think I'm with you, Oliver, on that, and how it affected the players. Slater to me looked like one of the players who'd used the facilities and then he was 5 yards down the corridor and thought, uh-oh, back a go. It was one of those. You could just see it. I'm trying not to be too much toilet stuff, but it was a big factor in the game.
You can't help
would be good to go into the international break with a positive result at Bristol City. Lee Walker, nice to hear from you, Lee, says, is Kamara going out on loan just for the rest of the season or with a view to a permanent move at the end of the loan deal?
At this stage, just a loan, as I understand it. But like I say, it's that deal has changed quite a few times, so we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, sad to see Abu go, to be fair, because I think there's a player there, and hopefully he goes and plays at that. He really wants to move as well, by all accounts. Hopefully he goes out to La Liga, has a good year in Madrid, and comes back a more rounded, more confident, better footballer. And City have got a decision to make at the end of the season. Do they sell him? Hopefully, from City's point of view, he's done well and his value's increased, or he come and they can sell him on for a lot more than they paid for him, or he comes back, better than Yamin Lamal and is ripping up for City.
I've never been to Madrid, but I can't imagine you can have a bad year in Madrid necessarily. Sounds a sexy city, as from what I've seen and read about it. You think, oh, nice. Wish him well. Hope it works out for him. Joe says, considering a virus swept through the team, I didn't think we played that bad. Score the earlier chances, it would have been a different game. Need to improve defensively, but wouldn't be dropping Drame, Hughes, Egan, Ajayi, Giles. Does Sergei need a tactical change at the back, though Joe doesn't suggest in what way?
Ajayi for me, but Kathryn, Ajayi's been a big miss, hasn't he? Because he was exceptional in pre-season, and at Coventry away, he was brilliant. His reading of the game, he was like the proverbial man mountain, and he was just brilliant. It's no coincidence for me, Kathryn, that since Ajayi's been lost, they've conceded 8 goals. 3 at Wrexham, albeit 2 of them came in 70 seconds at the end. 2 from long throws against Oxford, and obviously 3 at the weekend. Ajayi's a big loss, isn't he?
He is, yeah, and it did feel like, and nothing against John Egan, I think that the Ajayi centre-back partnership again in Coventry looked really strong, and he felt like that was something to build upon, and it hasn't quite looked the same since he's been injured. And Naturally, when I was at the Oxford game, the manager clearly wants the centre backs to get on the ball quite a lot. And I'm not 100% sure if that's John Egan's best sort of quality. I know obviously when he was at Sheffield United, he did play that kind of surging sort of centre back, wing back role at different times, and he clearly can do that. But I think it's just probably not his biggest strength, and we there's no getting away from the fact that the back four in the opening game kept a clean sheet and probably has looked the strongest back four that we've had. I still think with the two fullbacks who obviously got forward brilliantly against Oxford and didn't quite manage to get forward as much against Blackburn, whether they'd kind of noticed that and tried to restrict that a little bit. I still think there's a mistake in both of them. As much as I think they've improved massively from last season, I still think defensively they've got a little bit of a potential wobble in them at times. But I feel a lot more confident with them playing this season than I did last season. Whether that Giles kind of error, I don't think he will lose his place for Bristol, but whether that's kind of lingered, left a question mark potentially on. Obviously, you've got Brandon Williams there on the bench who came on for the last 5 minutes on Saturday. Whether how hard is he pushing Giles for that place, or potentially to go somewhere else in the back four, and I guess that's something to kind of keep an eye on.
So when he came on, he played centre back.
Yeah.
On Saturday as opposed to playing wing back. I think Drame and Giles have started the season really well. That missed tackle apart from Giles, but I think Blackburn did a bit of a job on them, stopped them getting out. They didn't get as far forward as they had done in the previous two games, so it wasn't as exciting as it has been in the games against Coventry and Oxford. But I'd stick with them. I know what you mean about. I felt Drame last season. Every game you felt maybe he had a rick in him. He was going to make a mistake, but he's impressed. They're both impressed. Giles is getting back to where we think he is as a player. That tackle us apart on Saturday. So I'm not sure anything changed, but you make a very good point about Brandon Williams. But I sort of mentally noted he played centre half, and I thought, well, there's another centre half option, perhaps. I don't know for Man United if he played centre half at all. I've not done that depth of research on him, but from what I saw on Saturday, at least he filled in there for Saturday, and he might, given what we were discussing earlier in the programme. He might be an answer to that centre back cover question.
Prutts, it's the first time we've had a chance to talk about the appeal, which obviously was lodged at the beginning of July when the 3 transfer window fee restrictions placed on the club. They appealed it. It was reduced to 2, with the third pending 7 days of late payments over the next 12 months. What was? I know you guys were talking about that in the studio on Saturday. What was the general feeling around like the situation that City have got themselves in? And just before you answer that, I think there are some people that say that the EFL have done right to given what's happened at Reading, Sheffield Wednesday. I know Morecambe in the National League, but are only recently out of the Football League. The EFL are right to be hot on City. And if they've got concerns about cash flow, about the club's ability to meet their HMRC demands, their transfer demands, and everything else as well, wages and payments to suppliers, it's right that the EFL should act. The rules are there for everybody, and everybody agrees to them. There are also those people that say, the EFL perhaps are being heavy-handed. That the owner, for example, is like, well, yes, we paid late, but we've paid up. There's no concerns. What's your feeling on it from talking to people in football, and obviously with Joe being everybody on Saturday?
Yeah, I think we'd chatted about this before it entered into that kind of category of not work needed to be like sanctions, if you like, and those cautionary tales that you're talking about with football clubs. I don't think. I understand how you can be a bit cynical or touchy potentially if you're a City fan, and you might be thinking that the EFL are doing it because it's Hull City and it's. I don't know whether it would be deemed to be an easy target, but there's absolutely none of that in there at all. They've got to approach it, the EFL, with as much necessary caution as possible. What's the other side of it? They let it go and go and go, and then suddenly you're in a position where Hull City are on the brink, which it's a position, of course, that City fans would remember from a generation ago, isn't it? With regards to locked gates and it looking very, very sticky indeed. So it's been is punishment the right word? It's been an answer to what's been created that's been meted out by the EFL, and they've just got to get on with it, really. I think, from the point of view of whether it's harsh or not, from the football clubs that you mentioned and football clubs we've seen in recent seasons that have been very, very close to the end, and some that have actually got to the end, then you've got to understand that that's the reason that there's a governing body to look after not the good of the game in a twee way, but the good of the participants in the game, which are football clubs, and the football clubs that have been around for decades. So maybe that slightly harsher treatment, and you can't compare clubs to clubs because everyone's got different ways of looking at it, and everyone's got different machinations about of what goes on. I was chatting to the owner at Oldham the other week, really wonderfully eccentric fella that was talking about, without them stepping in, the family stepping in, the business stepping in, Oldham were hours away from going out of business, So they stepped in, paid a hefty sum of money for a National League club and saved them. And now that story's on an upward kind of movement. Yet these people like Ajan haven't got endless amounts of money, even though he wants to continue spending money with City, doesn't it? But it's got to fall into the parameters of what's been set. That's where City find themselves now. Being able to work through that and get to the other side is their next port of call. And what helps with that is getting players in, as they've done, I think, of a decent standard that'll do a job in the Championship. And that's not damning them with faint praise, because it's a tough league, as every Hull City fan knows, watching them at Pompey last season, biting the nails down, knowing that, yes, they survived, but they survived by having three poorer teams and them not doing their jobs, not City necessarily doing their job on the final day. Again, not taking too much away from Ruben and the lads. So that's the hand that's been dealt. They've got to get on with it. There's nothing vindictive. There's nothing personal against Hull City in that situation that's been put upon them, because clubs have to run their financial departments as strictly and as healthily as the playing department. Now, different factors come into that, which hamper cash flow, which when we talk about PSR and the different ways that affects different football clubs, especially when clubs potentially have money to spend. I do understand the frustration, but it's a position that City have found themselves in by themselves. So they've got to take that on the chin and work their way through it.
Kathryn, any concerns about that third window being activated, given the fact that it's only 7 days of late payments, and City obviously have, a history of late payments, given the situation they've got themselves into?
You'd like to hope not. You'd like to think they've kind of learned from, previous kind of situations, and that wouldn't kind of be the case again. But you can't rule it out. At this point, I think with the two windows, they've just got to get on with it, really, haven't they? You've had the appeal. This appeal's not gone your way. You've just got to move on. And I think, most fans would say the business they have been able to do this summer actually been quite impressive, given the restrictions that they've had. And it's been fairly sensible, it feels like. And hopefully, if we get to January and they need a couple more players of some kind, again, it's going to be difficult with the situation in terms of if it's going to be one in, one out. That they've got a good team kind of working on that sort of stuff. And I think, Dublin and Hodge have done pretty well so far. And like I say, you've just got to kind of get on with it and hope and be grateful that it is the 2 and not 3. And I say be grateful in I don't know that in kind of sense of we should be happy about it, but it is better that it's 2 and not 3 in terms of next season and what they might be able to do. Hopefully that they that third one doesn't kind of get brought in, but it could have been worse. I think that's the way you've got to see it. It could have been a worse situation, and now you've just got to kind of get on with it.
And Burnsy, in terms of the squad, they've spent, last season they spent a lot of money, didn't they? Miller, Bellumi, Giles, Kamara, Pandor not too far before that. The wages associated, they've spent a lot of money, haven't they? Now it's time for a little bit of settling down, getting the best. Hopefully when Miller and Bellumi are fully fit, they can get the best out of them for a season. Keep Charlie Hughes, paid a lot of money for him. Get the best out of Ryan Giles, which Shakirovic so far is, I know, mistake aside on Saturday, but Giles has looked like the player that Middlesbrough had in the playoffs a couple of years ago. So they've got a lot of Drame's another one. You've got Lundstrom, McBurney, Joe Galhart's back. Undala looks a real talent. That is Prutts alluded to this earlier on. That is a group of players that can achieve under a manager that he's still finding his way in this league, but looks like he can get the best out of them.
I think it's been an encouraging start, and given the financial situation, it's a much better transfer window than anybody could have expected. So there are reasons to look forward with some optimism. Can I just say, because we got a fair amount of messages, and looking at the time, I see your timing still as immaculate as ever, Baz. Can I say thanks to El Nacho, Phil Moore, lots of people who've sent us messages. I like this from Trigger. I have quite a few questions, and that's all Trigger said. He didn't actually give us any questions. To Dave Staggle, to MHU, to various people have sent us messages. So thank you very much for that. And I've enjoyed doing it. Tough for the invite. And could I just say, because you mentioned, if you look now, you mentioned before we came on air that it looks as though Prutts has got a top knot, those very trendy sort of, but it's an international cap in the background. Though looking at the other one on the other side, it does to me look like it's two nipple tassels. Frankly, it's just I don't. But there you go. There you go.
That's
England under 21 caps.
Exactly. I mean, it's. I didn't put those there, just FYI, because that's ridiculous. But they are nipple tassels, so that's what they double up as. So some of the more storied players on this planet have got over 100 nipple tassels, haven't they? But that's quite a select band.
Anyway, on that happy note, I'll leave it. I'm trying to steer you. I'm looking at the clock.
Yes.
I'm looking at the clock, Baz, to say,
come on, Baz.
It's time to go. We've done our hour.
Yeah. Wipe your nose, wrap it up. Let's go.
On that bombshell, on that, yes. Thanks for all your messages, all your texts, everything as always. If you're travelling down to Ashton Gate on Saturday, have a safe journey. Hopefully, we get a positive result. Burnsy, wonderful to have you back. It's been too long.
I've enjoyed it.
Prutts, as always.
Pleasure to see all of you, and it's always nice to chat.
And thanks, Kathryn, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, Burns with the Iron Brew can as well, which I have spotted with this Scottish connection. Obviously, other drinks are available, but
yeah, I've been surviving on it. Just
brilliant. Right, we're going to let you go. We'll go, and Prutts is going to sort out his shelves, and we'll be back again soon. Thanks, everybody. All the best, and up those Tigers.